Hello, my name is William Mwende and welcome to this week's edition of the program Business Time. For 52 consecutive weeks, including this one, we've been consistent in giving you business and economic news stories that have been making headlines in the country. Not only stories, but we have had an analytical approach to business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. And one important and crucial part was we have been putting a human face to the figures and the numbers that do define the business and the economic landscape in the country. In this week's edition, we are going to take you through the trends in as far as business and economic landscape is concerned in the year 2021, which already has been rated by some experts as a year to forget. Stay tuned if you can. ...2021 is almost over. The year goes in the history books as one to forget for most sectors of the economy, mainly due to the COVID pandemic that has put most sectors almost on their knees. The pandemic, which was once seen as a health issue, eventually was getting into an economic issue as countries evoked travel restrictions, putting pressure for countries like Malawi, which are net importers. In the program today, we want to examine how the economy has fared. Firstly, we'll look at key variables or key fundamentals defining the local economy. For starters, inflation. The rate at which prices of commodities move at a given time in an economy has been on an upward spiral in the past 12 months. As at November 2021, inflation was recorded at 11.2%, crawling back to double-digit band. This has powered pressure on the consumer price and commodities on the market, as prices of the various commodities has also been on an upward spiral. There's been pressure in as far as cost of living is concerned. This is coming at the back of elevated prices of basic commodities like fuel, which for twice the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority has pushed the prices upwards, as well as other basic commodities like cooking oil, sugar, and the rest of the commodities on the market. But the question has been, what does this mean to the local economy and particularly to the Malawian on the ground? And further, a question would be, what measures does the government deploy to ensure that it contains the ever-skyrocketing inflation? Our journalist, Justin Mkweu, has been following the trends and has since filed this report.
Inflation, the rate at which prices of commodities change at a given time in an economy, remained volatile for the greater part of 2021. For example, by November this year, inflation was at 11.1%, beating the government's dream of keeping it in the single digit. Prices of goods and services rose by different percentages, including cooking oil, fuel, and water, among others. According to the Center for Social Concern, the rise in inflation means Malawians have been hit below the belt and can no longer ignore the pain. Center for Social Concern Programs Coordinator Bernard Mpepo said the rising inflation clearly signals the high cost of living, concerns of which they have been bringing to the knowledge of government and other stakeholders to be addressed. He added that the cost of living is now at 207,000 kwacha per household per month, but government has got instruments that can handle the stability of inflation. Malawi remains an importing and consuming nation with a very narrow export base, whose exports backbone are raw agricultural produce, with unprocessed tobacco being the main export. This situation exposes the country naked to price changes on the international market, which eventually results in imported inflation. For example, cooking oil prices rose with over 100% due to price increases in crude oil on the international market. Economist from the Malawi University of Science and Technology, Bechan Chereni, believes the inflation target of a single digit deserved to be missed, considering that Malawi has little control over inflation due to over-dependence on imports. He painted a gloomy picture in an interview, adding that the best thing that government can do is to encourage investments that will see mushrooming of companies that will produce products locally, which will be consumed locally, because in that way, international prices will have a little effect on the country. The Reserve Bank of Malawi, RBM spokesperson Ralph Seka, maintained that the country will achieve a set goal of having inflation averaging around 5% in medium term. Minister of Finance Felix Mlusu admitted in an interview last week, saying inflation is above target, attributing the situation to exogenous shocks due to COVID pandemic. He added that almost every country, including superpowers such as the United States of America, inflation has been rising.
Well, I think in terms of the outlook, first of all, dealing with the fact that inflation has gone up, that is true. But do not forget that we are not an island. We are part of the global village. If you look around in the global village, almost every country, inflation has gone up. Even if you look at the United States of America, inflation has actually gone up to levels that they have not experienced for a long time. So for us, we have obviously imported inflation, but there's also obviously local inflation. So we cannot escape that. Going forward, this is something that I'll be addressing in my budget.
Inflation is one macroeconomic indicator that affects a lot of other economic indicators, such as interest rate.
Now, let us examine the performance of the national budget in the year under review. Finance Minister Felix Mlusu launched or unveiled to Parliament the 9-month 2021-2022 national budget pegged at 2.3 trillion kwacha. Of the amount, the minister projected that the budget would have a deficit of 781 billion kwacha, close to half of the entire budget allocation. Perpetually, the country has been experiencing deficits, which has been pushing the treasury to the domestic market to borrow to ensure that it makes ends meet, as well as ensuring that it balances the equation. This has in turn been also affecting the entire landscape, as continued borrowing by the treasury has been pushing potential borrowers who could have invested in ideal ventures. Instead, banks and other lenders have been opting to lend to the government. This also do pose a greater threat, as the country is piling pressure to the coming generation to pay not only the debts, but also an interest attracted to the debts. But the question is, what is the government doing in as far as containing the pressure is concerned? We spoke to Felix Mlusu, who is Minister of Finance, to give us a hint in as far as debt management has been in the past 12 months.
Yes, it is true that right now our debt stock is standing at 5.5 trillion kwacha. Obviously, a lot of legacy issues, in that debt stock. But going forward, what we are doing, some of the initiatives and the strategy that we have put in place is one, to make sure that we improve in terms of revenue mobilization, locally here. And this is why, in fact, a couple of days ago or weeks ago, I did launch the revenue mobilization strategy, so that we are able, to collect revenues from the businesses in this country. Because we also noted that in terms of revenue compliance, not many businesses or even individuals who ought to have been really paying their fair share in terms of revenue contribution to the development of this country. So that is one of the biggest measures that we have put in place, so that we are able to at least address the issue of debt. However, that does not mean that we are not going to continue to borrow, only that our borrowing is going to be much less than what has happened, before. So we'll be borrowing, very little, because we still have to run, programs that the government, has put in place. But also, as we borrow, we want to be borrowing at much lower interest rates compared to what has been happening in the past.
Now, the year has been rated as a mixed bag by industry players. Some would rate it as a year to forget, as they were almost on their knees, mainly due to the COVID pandemic. But with the COVID in the equation, others make a fortune out of it. We saw some commercial banks posting good tidings for the year 2021, despite the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Our journalist Chimwemwe Mangazi has been following trends in the local industry to find out how industries and sectors in the economy are faring, and has since filed this report.
Overall performance of the local economy in 2021 creates an impression that the private sector has suffered a great deal. For instance, fuel pump prices were revised upwards twice within the year, going above the 1,000 kwacha mark. The local currency, the kwacha, went on a free-fall move against major trading currencies. The people's disposable incomes deteriorated owing to increases in commodity prices, which also reflected on rising inflation. However, all these factors were not enough to disrupt businesses, as did the COVID pandemic and political instability in the preceding year. Memories are still fresh of the massive retrenchments, salary and production cuts, and others closing shop in 2020, slowdowns which was a great blow to the industry. President of the Malawi Confederation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, MCCCI, explains.
The year has been a mixed bag, but when all is said and done, I think it has been better than we had anticipated. The main challenges were COVID-19, and then after that, there was just that general slowdown, because even our traditional suppliers and our traditional buyers had logistical challenges. So it took a long time for whatever we had to export to reach the destination and we get paid. And also it took a long time for suppliers not only to produce, but even after they've produced, to have those goods sent to Malawi.
Chairperson of the Malawi Tourism Council, Jones Maliri, says players in the sector were able to keep their businesses afloat and rake in profits in the year, unlike in 2020.
I would describe the performance for the financial year 2021 as an improvement and better if we are to compare with the performance for the sector in the year of 2020. If you look at the first quarter, it was when we just coming from the time that the pandemic hit the country really bad. That was in the months of January to March, but we saw the business picking up from the second quarter, third quarter, up until the fourth quarter, which we are talking that so far business has been fair.
Nevertheless, employers describe the year as a mixed bag. Employers Conservative Association of Malawi Executive Director George Kaki holds that the year incorporated pro-employment measures by removing some taxes, repaying private sector debts owed by government, adding that there was increases in investment in public infrastructure, agriculture, education, and health.
Remember, this is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories that are making headlines in the country. And in this particular edition, we have been reviewing the year 2021 in as far as business and economic news stories are concerned. We've taken you through the major highlights for the year 2021. We are going into the final segment of the program, which we are going to give you a hint of the making of the program Business Time. We want you to meet the faces behind the production of Business Time, as well as some areas that we haven't given you, but we're part of the production process of the program. That's when we get back inside Business Time. Welcome back. This is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. Moving on with the program. For the past 52 weeks, consistently, we've been giving you business and economic news stories that have been making headlines in the country, but with an analytical approach. And more importantly, putting a human face to the figures and the numbers. You might be seeing one or two faces in front of the camera, but truth be told, there is a team, a whole team, behind the production of the program Business Time. To put up a 30-minute program every week consistently, there is a team and there is always concerted effort to ensure that we put across the news stories that have been making headlines in the country. Let me at the onset introduce to you some members that are crucial and key in the production of the team. They share their experience in as far as production of the program is concerned, as well as how they have seen the year 2021 in as far as the economic landscape is concerned.
My name is Chimo Mangazi. I'm a contributor on the business desk, both print and electronic, but focusing on electronic production of Business Time and whatnot. I would say it's an exciting and challenging journey producing Business Time programs and indeed providing content for the program. Exciting because all the time you are learning. Challenging because we are lean on the ground, so there's a lot of work that you have to cover, a lot of ground that you need to cover. Regardless that factor, the program has to come out, a fresh program has to come out all the time, every Tuesday.
My name is Taonga Sabola. I'm the Bureau Chief for Times Group in the Central Region. I also contribute to the Business Time. Basically, when I look back at the year 2021, I should say it has been a tough year for the local economy. Of course, the sectors which we normally rely on, especially looking at agriculture, which is the driver of the economy, it performed so well basically because of the agriculture, the affordable input subsidy programs. And also if you look at some areas like manufacturing, construction, of course wholesale performed relatively well, but at the end of the day we can say it was a bit of a challenging year. There were a number of factors that contributed to this challenge, including the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, the experience of being one of the people in the background of Business Time has been great. Most of the times we work under tight schedule, but still more we deliver, and we believe that people are happy with what we give them.
My name is Francis Namondwe. 2021 has been a very good year, a very busy year, so I should say. We've had challenges, but all in all, we've managed to deliver everything that we were asked to deliver.
My name is Mike Prima Mataga, one of the video editors and cameramen here at Times. The experience has been good. We've had time in the year 2021 when we are supposed to come up with a program at all costs. Each time whenever you're working under that pressure and you're talking to the editor, maybe we are running out of time, he always says, okay, but you are, as long as you are alive, the program will go on air because it has never failed.
Now, as we go towards the end of the program, Business Time, I want to bring to your attention some things that in the very first place, I wouldn't find pleasure giving them to you. But I know the man behind the camera, Prima, he calls himself Prima, whatever that means, Mike Mataga, is comfortable to ensure that he puts across things that I wouldn't in the very first place bring to your attention. Errors, mistakes. Okay, we are all human and we're all prone to making mistakes. There are moments when we err in the course of the production process. It's the time I bring to you the behind the scenes, the making of the program Business Time. Hello and welcome. In our main story in the program today, for quite some Hello and welcome. In Amen, hello and welcome. For instance, cooking oil, price for cooking oil. Komada had promised one thing, that I would not make an error. See, about 26.3 billion kwacha had not been remitted to pension fund managers. However, why? Output and revenue from the leaf has been agul. What? Mga kagunchiro firma kusogoneza ni? Ife mga kagunchiro dima kusogoneza nkoni? On behalf of the entire production team, my name is William Kumwembe. But always remember, if 2021 didn't make fortunes evidenced by elevated well, on that lighter note, we've also come to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories that are making headlines in the country. Precisely for this particular edition, we're looking at the major stories that made headlines in as far as business and the economic landscape is concerned in the year 2021, and also futuristic looking. What would the year 2022 look like in the eyes or the lenses of experts in the country? My name is William Kumwembe. On behalf of the entire production team, we wish you a prosperous and successful year 2022. But remember, if 2021 did not make money for you, then I would assume that it didn't make sense. Bye for now.